Hello everyone, friends. Today we will embark on a journey through the eerie pages of Everest's history. This time we will talk about the legendary climber better known to the public by the nickname Green Boots. As usual, let's start from the beginning. The exact number of climbers' bodies left on Everest remains unknown. However, according to the most conservative estimates, there are over 200. These human remains, buried under snow and hidden by avalanches, have found eternal rest on the peak that became their grave. The down jackets they wore have faded, the bodies have deformed, and their names have long been forgotten. Most of them are hidden from sight, but some rest right on the path, where climbers relentlessly make their way up. These remains have become silent reminders of how dangerous Everest is. Over time, their bodies have become part of climbing culture. They are given new names, which indicate the distance to the summit, and they become an integral part of the mountain. Today we will talk about the most famous of such markers, known among climbers as Green Boots. This climber, lying as if asleep, rests on his side in the shadow of an overhanging rock. He pulled a red fleece scarf over his face, as if trying to hide from prying eyes. Hugging his knees tightly, he tries to protect himself from the biting wind and deadly cold. His feet, stretched out onto the path, force climbers to step over his neon green climbing boots. For many years, people wondered who this climber was, and now we can confidently say that these are the remains of a young Indian climber, Tsewang Paljor. He died during the infamous 1996 storm, the same one that claimed the life of the famous climber Scott Fisher, while Anatoly Bukreev performed heroic acts by saving several people. For more than 20 years, climbers simply called him Green Boots because of the bright footwear he wore. His body remained near the north summit of Everest, and during times when the snow cover was thin, climbers had to step over Paljor's outstretched legs while ascending to the summit and descending from it. To most viewers, the idea that their dead body might serve as an obstacle for other climbers for decades seems simply horrifying. However, many climbers see it differently. They write in their wills that their bodies should not be brought down, wishing to remain in the mountains forever. Let's start by answering why people climb Everest, as this question often arises in the comments. Since the triumphant ascent of Sir Edmund Hillary and his partner Tenzing Norgay in 1953, the mountain has gradually lost its aura of mystery. More than 4,000 people have been to its summit, with over 7,000 attempts recorded. All these people have left behind traces of trash and waste, and sometimes their own dead bodies. For Sherpas and other guides on Everest, the reason they continue to return is the high earnings. Others, however, have a wide variety of reasons. Professional climbers view Everest as an important goal and a significant climbing achievement. But with each passing year, the mountain sees more and more casual climbers, many of whom have little to do with mountaineering. Each of them has their own personal goals. Some want to add this achievement to their biography, while others hope for a promotion, for example, in the Indian police or army. Often reaching the summit can become a career booster. A huge number of today's so-called Instagram climbers aim for the summit just to share their success on social media and gain social approval. The leader of the first Indian expedition, Captain Mountains.Stories.Lives, shares his thoughts these days. Climbing Everest seems like a big joke. It's nothing like the times when everything was full of adventure, challenges, and exploration. Now it's just a physical ascent with the help of others. He adds that today the real challenge is to climb Everest and not tell anyone about it. However, don't think that with the development of equipment and commercial climbing, Everest has become an easy walk. This trap has caught many, and on our channel we already have numerous episodes telling how an ascent turned into tragedy. Apart from war zones, high mountains remain the only place on Earth where it is even normal to encounter human remains. It's clear that people have died in all mountains, but during a climb on Everest, you're likely to come across several dead bodies, as there are plenty of them here. Climber Ed Viestures says about this: imagine you're climbing on a beautiful day and suddenly you see a body. It works like an alarm clock, waking you up. For most climbers, these eerie encounters serve as a reminder of how dangerous the mountain is and how close death is. There have been cases when dead bodies have caused climbers to turn around and descend, possibly saving their own lives in the process. In 2010, Belgian climber Joran Thiel, climbing the north route of Everest, stumbled upon a colorful mass. Realizing it was a climber, he quickly approached, ready to offer help. It was then that he saw a bag. Someone had placed a plastic bag over the deceased's face so that birds wouldn't peck out his eyes. The climber was dead. Reflecting on this, Jur says it felt wrong to continue climbing. At some point I saw myself lying in that place. He could have reached the summit, but he made the decision to descend. As you can imagine, most climbers continue their ascent, convincing themselves that such a thing won't happen to them. However, sometimes these encounters take on a personal nature. One of Scott Fisher's good friends, a mountain guide who died in the 1996 disaster on Everest's south side, shares his memories. When you pass by and see your friend lying there, you know exactly who it is. I try not to look, but my eyes are always drawn to that spot. Now, let's return to Green Boots. Although little is known about the person behind this nickname, we do know that Paljor, along with his climbing companions Tsewang Paljor and Dorje Morup, perished during the 1996 storm. Their story was captured in John Krakauer's book Into Thin Air, and in the recently made film Everest. This storm claimed many lives, including Fisher's, while Anatoly Bukriv displayed heroism in saving other climbers. Paljor was a member of the Indo-Tibetan Border Police and died at just 28 years old. He was born in a small, poor village, and as the eldest son, he bore the responsibility for his family. His relatives were farmers who could barely make ends meet. After finishing the 10th grade, Paljor dropped out of school to join the Indo-Tibetan Border Police. It was his ticket to life and a way to provide for his family. As a strong, athletic man, he joined the elite police climbing unit that planned to make an ambitious ascent of Everest, becoming the first Indians to summit from the north. His brother recalls he must have thought that if he reached the top of Everest, it would benefit his family. He was excited about the opportunity. Promotion after a successful Everest ascent is a common practice for the Indian police and military. So Paljor couldn't pass up such a chance. The leader of the expedition was Commander Mahinder Singh. He chose Paljor as a member of the first summit team, along with Wangchuk Samanla and Dorje Morup, as well as Deputy Leader Harbhajan Singh. But the team made many mistakes. The problems began on the morning of May 10th, when the team was delayed by strong winds and then simply overslept. The climbers left Camp 4 only at 8 a.m. instead of the planned 3:30. Considering the extremely late start, they decided to climb as high as possible and fix the ropes, but not attempt to reach the summit, as they would have to descend in the dark, which would risk their lives due to the late start. They simply wouldn't have enough daylight for a safe descent. By 2:30 p.m. the team was already high, but the wind began to pick up again. Singh gave the team a strict order to turn back by 2:30 p.m., but no later than 3 p.m. However, Harbhajan was far behind his companions. When he signaled them to stop and begin the descent, they either didn't see him or ignored him. Watching them move away, a frostbitten Harbhajan Singh decided to descend to Camp 4 alone. The leader suspected that his men had fallen victim to what is called summit fever, when due to a lack of oxygen, a person loses the ability to think clearly and may continue moving toward the summit. Finally, at 3 p.m. that day, a concerned Singh, waiting for news at the camp, heard his radio crackle. "It was Samanla, sir. We are heading to the summit," he announced. The leader shouted into the radio, "No, the weather is bad. Turn back, you won't make it down before dark." However, Samanla ignored the warning and passed the radio to Paljor. "Sir, please let us climb after that." The connection was lost. But at 5:35 p.m. the climbers contacted the camp again to report that they had reached the summit. This was the first Indian ascent from the northern side. However, the celebration in the camp didn't last long. Very soon, the infamous 1996 blizzard began, which claimed the lives of many climbers, including well-known ones like Scott Fisher. It became clear that the climbers needed to be rescued. According to the official report, at 8 p.m., team leader Singh decided to ask the Japanese commercial climbing team from Fukuoka for help. 2 climbers from the team, Hiroshi Hanada and Isuki Shikigami, were in the situation. Singh reported that the leader of the Japanese team contacted his Camp 4 team via radio, explained the situation, and then told Singh that the Japanese climbers would do everything possible to help the stranded Indians. Moreover, the Sherpa translator assured on his behalf that the Japanese would treat this crisis as if it were their own. This is what Singh wrote. By morning, the storm had subsided, and the Japanese were able to head for the summit. At 9 a.m., their team leader informed Singh that his 2 climbers had encountered Marupov, who was severely frostbitten. However, all the Japanese did was help him clip into the fixed ropes before continuing their ascent, without making any attempt to rescue or assist him further. They simply continued toward the summit. And 2 hours later, under clear skies and in very good weather, the 2 Japanese climbers and 3 of their Sherpas met Tsewang Paljor. But again, they did not stop or offer any assistance, continuing their climb to the summit. Here's what Singh wrote in his report. Why didn't they give even a drop of water to our dying men? What about the ethics of mountaineering? The Japanese left us with no hope. Reaching the summit was more important than saving human lives. Moreover, the Indian police didn't come out in the best light in this story either. For example, they informed Paljor's mother that he was missing because the body hadn't been found. Indian officials promised to take care of the family. However, Paljor's mother only received a one-time insurance payment of $35 and then $36 every 2 months. And as I mentioned before, for many years, people speculated about who the Green Boots really were. Many bet it was George Mallory, but it was Paljor. The place where he lies is called the Green Boots Cave. It's a corner located at an altitude of 8,500 meters, sheltered from the wind, and therefore a resting place for climbers on their way back from the summit. There they can sit down, catch their breath, or have a snack. Despite such a proximity, in 2006, the Green Boots Cave gained even more tragic fame when British climber David Sharp was found curled up inside the cave on the brink of death. This story made headlines because that day, more than 100 climbers passed by Sharp on their way to the summit without offering any assistance, just as it happened with his Indian colleagues. Ultimately, the climber died, and he joined the Green Boots in their final resting place. However, Sharp's body was removed about a year later at the request of his parents, but Paljor, better known as the Green Boots, remained in his cave. So why aren't the bodies taken down? Many of you frequently ask me this question in the comments and suggest numerous solutions to this problem. Some suggest using helicopters, others suggest dragging the bodies down on sleds, and still others propose carrying them down with a large team. All of this is practically impossible. Let's discuss the helicopter option. Helicopters fly at a maximum altitude of 6,000 meters, and that's only in very good weather. But all these events, most of which I'm talking about, take place at an altitude of 8,000 meters. Above 8,000 meters is known as the death zone. A helicopter simply cannot physically fly that high, so that option is off the table. Dragging bodies on sleds is certainly a good idea, but Mount Everest, like any other mountain, is not a gentle slope covered in soft snow. There are also rocky sections, icy crevasses, and huge glacier cracks which climbers have to cross on rickety ladders tied together with ropes from which climbers constantly fall. So sleds are not the easiest option either. Though Sherpas do use sleds when lowering bodies. Yes, indeed, on flat sections they drag them on sleds, or simply drag them by wrapping them in down jackets or whatever comes to hand, or with ropes. And that's really the only way climbers can lower bodies from the summits right now. That means a large team climbs up to the body, and people take turns lowering it down, literally a few meters at a time. However, this operation costs more than $100,000, and for such an event you'll have to search for willing participants for a long time because all climbers, including Sherpas, understand that this is likely a one-way ticket. Several rescuers trying to lower the body may die during the descent because at an altitude of 8,000 meters it's hard to pick up a piece of paper that you dropped on the snow. It's hard to take a step, even the smallest step. It's hard to breathe. It's just an incredible physical effort. And a human body is not a candy wrapper. In full gear, it weighs 100 to 150 kg, and it needs to be lowered several kilometers over very difficult terrain, and as I remind you, it's hard just to breathe up there. Plus bodies, if they've been lying there for a long time, start to freeze. Into the ice, into the slope, and removing them from the rocks becomes nearly impossible. It takes hours to hack them out with ice axes, essentially chipping them off the mountainside. That's why such a large number of dead climbers remain on Everest. They have nowhere to go. If their bodies can't be moved to a lower level, like 7,000 meters, they remain on Everest. In the end, it's a huge responsibility to take the dead down. It requires a separate expedition. And there's not always the money for that. I think in the last 10 to 15 years, about 50 climbers have simply remained on the slopes of Everest. If they aren't remembered, if they aren't taken down, in this sense, they are doomed to exist forever. So I strongly recommend that those who are planning to climb Everest prepare very well for the journey so they don't end up staying there forever. Let me know what you think of this story in the comments. I read them all. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I know many of you watch me without subscribing. Make sure you're subscribed. It's not hard for you, and it makes me happy. See you at the next summit.